My fiancé's ex-wife had an emergency, so he left me to care for his sick son and vanished for a week. He then called to say he wasn't coming back. Now his parents have disowned him and gave me his house. I thought I had finally found my happily ever after. I was engaged to a man I loved, ready to become a stepmother to his adorable 5-year-old son. Our wedding was just a few months away, and life felt perfect. But then, one night, Daniel got a phone call from his ex-wife. She had an emergency, and without hesitation, he left. Just for a night, he promised. But he never came back. For a week, I cared for his sick son alone, waiting for Daniel's return. He never even called. Then one evening, my phone rang. His voice was cold. I am not coming back. I lost the man I loved, but what happened next shook my world even more. His own parents disowned him and gave me his house. I met Daniel 3 years ago at a mutual friend's housewarming party. He stood out, not just because of his height or confident presence, but because of the way he laughed so easily despite everything he had been through. At the time, I had no idea he was divorced with a child. We started talking that evening, and before I knew it, hours had passed. He was charming, attentive, and warm, but there was also a heaviness in his eyes. When I asked about it, he hesitated before admitting he had gone through a messy divorce. His ex-wife, Melissa, had been unreliable, constantly disappearing and reappearing in his life. She had walked away from their marriage when Noah was just 3, leaving Daniel to raise him alone. Despite the betrayal, Daniel never spoke badly about her. He only cared about making sure Noah felt loved. When I finally met Noah, I understood why Daniel was so devoted. He was a quiet but sweet little boy with the biggest brown eyes and a habit of clutching his stuffed dinosaur whenever he felt nervous. Over time, he warmed up to me. He would reach for my hand when crossing the street, ask me to tuck him in, and even call me when Daniel was running late from work. I never wanted to replace his mother, but it was clear Melissa was more of a ghost in his life than a real parent. She would show up randomly, sometimes disappearing for months at a time, only to return and shower Noah with affection for a few hours before leaving again. Each time she left, Noah would cry himself to sleep. Daniel did his best to fill the void, but I could tell it exhausted him. When he proposed to me, I thought I was stepping into a real family. I had no idea that within a few months, my entire world would shatter. Daniel and I had been engaged for 6 months, and I was fully involved in raising Noah. I took him to school, helped with his homework, and even stayed up with him when he was sick. It felt natural, like I was already playing the role of his mother. Daniel always reassured me that he saw a future with us together. He made me feel loved, secure, and appreciated. However, there was always one shadow hanging over us, Melissa. Even though she was barely in Noah's life, she still had a strange power over Daniel. Anytime she called, he would drop everything to answer. Whenever she randomly showed up, he let her spend time with Noah, no matter how much it disrupted his routine. I never questioned it. I thought he was just trying to be a good father. But deep down, I sometimes wondered, was she really as gone as he claimed? Then one night, everything changed. Melissa called Daniel out of nowhere, sounding frantic. She claimed she had a serious emergency and needed help immediately. Before I could even ask what was wrong, Daniel grabbed his keys and said, "I will be back soon." Noah had a fever, and I thought Daniel would at least wait until morning to check on his ex-wife. But he did not. He left me alone with his sick son and disappeared. That night turned into a week. At first, I was patient. I called and texted, but my messages were met with short responses. Handling it. Be back soon. Then, my calls started going unanswered. By the 4th day, I had an awful feeling in my chest. By the 7th, I was ready to accept the truth. Then, my phone rang. Daniel's voice was cold. "I am not coming back." The moment those words left his mouth, my heart stopped. "What?" I whispered, gripping the phone so tightly my fingers ached. "I am not coming back," Daniel repeated, his tone flat, too calm, too detached, as if he was discussing something as simple as a canceled dinner plan. I felt a strange ringing in my ears. The world around me, the dim glow of the lamp, the sound of Noah's soft breathing from his bedroom, suddenly seemed too distant, too unreal. "What do you mean, Daniel?" I forced out, my throat dry. "Where are you?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then finally, he sighed. "I am with Melissa." My stomach twisted painfully. Melissa, his ex-wife, the woman who had walked out of his life and abandoned their son. The woman he had sworn he was completely over. A cold wave of dread washed over me. "Melissa?" I repeated, almost choking on her name. "Are you serious right now? You left me alone with your sick son for a week, to be with your ex-wife." Another pause. Then, in a tired voice, Daniel muttered, "It is complicated." "No." I shook my head furiously, even though he could not see me. "It is simple. You abandoned me. You abandoned Noah. What is going on?" Silence. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was talking to a stranger. I waited, my hands clenched into fists. My breath came in short, uneven gasps. "Please say something. Please tell me this is a misunderstanding." Then, in a voice so soft I almost missed it, Daniel finally admitted the truth. "Melissa needs me." Something inside me snapped. "Melissa needs you?" My voice was shaking now, rising with every word. "What about me, Daniel? What about Noah? Do we not need you?" He exhaled. "You are strong. You will be fine." I felt like I had been slapped. "You still love her," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Daniel did not say anything. And that silence? It was my answer. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them away, refusing to let him hear me break. "Not like this. Not over the phone. I have spent the last 3 years building a life with you," I said, my voice quivering. "I took care of your son like he was my own. I planned our wedding. And now, out of nowhere, you are just what? Leaving. I am sorry." 2 words. Just two meaningless words. I let out a bitter laugh. And what about Noah? What do you expect me to tell him? That his father decided he was not enough. Another silence. Then, in the most heartbreaking voice I had ever heard, Daniel whispered, "Tell him I am sorry." The line went dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, hoping, praying, that this was some kind of nightmare. That I had misheard. That any second now, Daniel would call back and tell me this was all a horrible joke. But the phone stayed silent. And when I looked at Noah, still curled up in bed, his small body burning with fever, I knew this was real. His father was gone. And I was the only one left to pick up the pieces. The next few days were a blur. I barely ate. I barely slept. I forced myself to be strong for Noah, but inside I felt like I was crumbling. Noah kept asking, "When is Daddy coming home?" Every time he did, my chest ached. I told myself I would never lie to him, but how could I explain the truth? That his father had chosen someone else? That he had walked away without looking back? I tried calling Daniel again, not for me, but for Noah. He never answered. Then, on the 5th day, Daniel's parents showed up at my doorstep. And they were furious. I barely had time to process the shock of Daniel's parents standing at my doorstep before his mother, Margaret, stormed inside. Her face was tight with anger and disappointment, her movements sharp. George, her husband, followed closely behind, his expression far more restrained, but I could see the weight of frustration in his eyes. "Where is he?" Margaret demanded, scanning the room as if expecting to find Daniel hiding in the corner. I blinked in confusion. "Where is who?" Her eyes darkened. "Daniel," she snapped. "We know he left. We know he ran off to be with that woman. But we have not heard from him since. He is ignoring our calls." I felt my stomach drop. So it was not just me he abandoned. Daniel had ghosted his own parents. Margaret clenched her fists. "Do you have any idea where he is?" I shook my head slowly. The last time I heard from him, he called to tell me he was not coming back. George exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. "Unbelievable." Margaret let out a bitter laugh. "He is a coward. A selfish, reckless coward." She turned back to me, her gaze softening just slightly. "You took care of Noah while he was gone?" I nodded. I had no choice. Margaret's lips pressed together. "Thank you," she said after a moment. "At least someone in my son's life has a sense of responsibility." I did not respond. What was there to say? Then, something I had not expected happened. George stepped forward, his voice firmer than I had ever heard it before. "We are done with him." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Margaret's expression hardened. "We mean that Daniel is no longer our son. We are cutting ties." Shock coursed through me. You are serious?" George nodded. We tried to reason with him, to get him to take accountability. But he has abandoned his child, abandoned you, and now he is running away from all consequences." Margaret exhaled shakily. "And we are not going to be a part of it anymore." I swallowed hard, trying to process what they were saying. His own parents were disowning him. Margaret reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. She placed it on the table and slid it toward me. "This is for you." I hesitated before picking it up. My hands trembled as I pulled out the documents inside. I read the words once, then twice. My heart started pounding. What is this?" I whispered. Margaret's expression softened. "It is the deed to the house." I looked up sharply. "What?" George stepped forward. "We are signing it over to you." My breath caught in my throat. "But why? This is Daniel's family home." Margaret's eyes darkened. "Not anymore." I shook my head in disbelief. "I cannot take this. This is his inheritance, his childhood home." No." Margaret's voice was firm. "This is our choice. And we are choosing you." Her voice trembled slightly, but she did not back down. "You have been more of a parent to Noah than Daniel ever was. And after everything you have done, you deserve some security. We do not want this house in Daniel's name anymore. We want you and Noah to have it." Tears welled up in my eyes. I did not know what to say. George sighed, his voice softer now. "We were blind. For years, we made excuses for him. But now we see him for who he really is. And we see you for who you are too." Margaret wiped at her eyes quickly. "You may not be blood, but you are family, far more than Daniel will ever be. He threw everything away. But you stepped up. That means something to us." I felt something deep inside me crack open. For so long, I had felt alone. Abandoned. Now, here were Daniel's parents, the people who once adored their son, who once thought he could do no wrong, choosing me over him. For Noah. For the family he left behind. Margaret reached forward and squeezed my hand. "We hope you accept it," she said gently. I looked at the papers again, my heart pounding. And then, with tears streaming down my face, I nodded. "Thank you," I whispered. And for the first time in days, I did not feel so alone. The weight of the documents in my hands felt surreal. The house I had spent so much time in, the place where I had built dreams with Daniel, had just been handed to me, not out of pity, but out of recognition. Daniel's parents saw me. They saw the effort I had made, the sacrifices, the nights spent taking care of Noah while their son disappeared without a trace. They saw who I truly was. But accepting the house came with its own wave of emotions. I was grateful, but I was also angry. Daniel had walked away so easily, as if none of this mattered. A week passed and I heard nothing from him. Then 2 weeks. Then a full month. No calls. No explanations. Just silence. But that silence did not last. One afternoon, I was sitting with Noah, helping him put together a puzzle, when my phone rang. I froze when I saw the name on the screen. Daniel. I had not heard his voice since the night he told me he was not coming back. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen. Noah looked up at me with wide eyes. "Is it Daddy?" he asked softly. I swallowed hard and nodded. "Do you want to talk to him?" Noah hesitated. Then, after a moment, he shook his head. That told me everything I needed to know. I I took a deep breath and answered. Hello. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then finally Daniel spoke. Hey. I clenched my jaw. Hey. His voice sounded hesitant. Guilty. Small. I heard my parents gave you the house. I exhaled sharply. That is what you were calling about? There was another long pause. I cannot believe they did that. I let out a bitter laugh. Really? You cannot believe it? You left your son. You left me. You abandoned all of us, Daniel. It is not like that, he muttered. I just needed time. I could feel my blood boiling. Time. I stood up and walked to the other room, lowering my voice. You left me alone with your sick child, without a single explanation. And now, after over a month of silence, you think you can just call and talk about the house. Daniel sighed. I did not think they would go that far. I shook my head. They see you for who you are now. And so do I. There was a long pause. Then Daniel said something I did not expect. I want to see Noah. My stomach tightened. You lost that right when you left, I said firmly. He is my son. Then why did you leave him? Silence. Daniel, he waited for you. Every night, he asked if his dad was coming home. And every night, I had to lie and tell him I did not know. I was not ready to be a dad, he muttered. I never was. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then why are you calling now? He sighed. I do not know. Maybe because I regret it. Maybe because I thought I would be happier without all of this responsibility. But I am not. I gripped the phone tightly. That is not my problem anymore. Another long silence. Then finally, he said, Are you going to let me see him? I took a deep breath and forced myself to stay calm. That is not up to me. That is up to Noah. Daniel exhaled sharply. So what? You are just going to turn him against me. My grip on the phone tightened. I do not have to, Daniel. You did that yourself. And with that, I hung up. Daniel never called again. A few months later, I officially became Noah's legal guardian. Margaret and George helped me through the process. They stood by me every step of the way, making it clear that Noah was going to be raised in a stable, loving environment. One that Daniel could not provide. The house was fully transferred to my name. It was mine now. Noah and I made small changes to it over time. We painted the walls a new color. We planted flowers in the front yard. We turned Daniel's old office into a playroom filled with books, puzzles, and toys. The house no longer felt like Daniel's. It felt like ours. One evening, as I was tucking Noah into bed, he looked up at me and whispered, Are you going to leave me too? I felt my heart crack. I took his small hand in mine and squeezed it gently. Never, I whispered. I will always be here for you. Noah's eyes softened, and after a moment he smiled. Okay. That night, as I turned off the lights and sat quietly in the living room, I finally allowed myself to breathe. I had lost Daniel, but I had gained something far more important. A family. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon to stay updated with more intriguing stories like this.